French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has emphasised the urgent need for France to intensify its approach to combating drug trafficking, modelling its response on the national unity and coordinated efforts seen in the country's fight against terrorism. Speaking from Paris on November 18, 2025, Lecornu outlined the growing scope and complexity of drug trafficking networks, and he underscored the necessity of adapting France's strategies to meet the evolving nature of this criminal threat. In his address, Lecornu provided a detailed analysis of the changing landscape of drug trafficking in France, noting that the networks involved are not only becoming more numerous, but also more dispersed. The enemy is evolving. There are more of them than before. 15 or 20 years ago, there were only a few major networks that investigators could focus on. Today, these networks are far more scattered and far more numerous, and unfortunately involve increasingly younger players, including killers who may be just 14, 15 or 16 years old, Lecornu said. This shift in the makeup of drug trafficking groups, according to the Prime Minister, means that the government must adapt its tactics and resources to deal with the situation effectively. Drug networks are no longer centralised, with many more actors operating in a much broader, decentralised manner. As the enemy evolves, we must adapt in turn. That is the purpose of the drug trafficking law that was extensively debated and passed here in the National Assembly, he explained. The Prime Minister's words come amid a broader crackdown on drug trafficking and its associated violence. Lecornu explained that the French government is taking a two-pronged approach. First, the country is enhancing its laws to give law enforcement more power and resources to fight these criminal networks. Second, the government is focusing on ensuring that adequate support is given to judicial authorities at a local level, particularly in cities like Marseille, where the drug trade has had a particularly destructive impact. In his address, Lecornu stressed the importance of allocating substantial resources to the judiciary to support these efforts. He noted that funding will be directed to areas heavily impacted by drug violence, such as Marseille. The significant resources that will again be allocated to the judiciary in Marseille are part of our broader strategy to tackle the drug problem head-on, Lecornu said, pointing to ongoing investments in law enforcement and judicial reforms. However, Lecornu also made it clear that while the current measures are important, they are only the beginning. We must already start thinking ahead, because adapting is absolutely essential. The enemy will continue to embrace violence and will continue to evolve towards ever more serious acts, he warned, alluding to the darker developments that may follow unless the country adapts quickly enough. The Prime Minister underscored that this is not just a local issue, but a national challenge that requires a unified approach across all levels of government. He called for national cohesion and collaboration in tackling what he described as an increasingly dangerous and pervasive problem. I want to say this with great solemnity, given the various meetings we have held with the Justice Minister and the Interior Minister. Unfortunately, this fight is only just beginning, Lecornu remarked, stressing the gravity of the situation. To further clarify his point, Lecornu referenced the broader context of France's previous successes in combating other major societal threats. He specifically mentioned the country's response to terrorism, where a strong, coordinated national effort had been put in place to deal with the growing terrorist threat. Lecornu drew comparisons to this successful model, stating that it is now time to apply the same principles to the fight against drug trafficking. What worked in the past, including in terms of organisation, something first initiated under President Hollande in the fight against terrorism, must also inspire us in the fight against drug trafficking, Lecornu said. The French Prime Minister emphasised that while terrorism remains a critical issue, drug trafficking has now evolved into an equally urgent threat that demands a similar level of national coordination and response. Lecornu also highlighted the role of younger individuals in the growing drug networks. He expressed concern over the increasing involvement of minors in the drug trade, with some being used to carry out violent acts. The involvement of children as young as 14 or 15 in criminal activities is a troubling development, as it signals the rise of a more organised and ruthless generation of traffickers. There are unfortunately young actors involved in this, including killers who may be just 14, 15 or 16 years old, he said. This alarming trend of younger individuals being recruited into the drug trade reflects a disturbing shift that has been noted across many parts of France. Lecornu's statement draws attention to the fact that drug networks are no longer operating as loosely organised groups of adult criminals, but are becoming more sophisticated, with some of their operations now involving highly coordinated younger individuals. The recruitment of young people into these groups is also raising broader concerns about the future of French society and its ability to combat these growing criminal influences. The French government is responding to this shift with legislation designed to address not only the increase in the number of criminal networks, but also the age of those involved. The newly passed drug trafficking law is a crucial element of this strategy, providing law enforcement agencies with the tools they need to pursue offenders more effectively and prosecute them under stricter terms. Lecornu's statements also underscore the complexity of the issue. As drug trafficking evolves, so too must the strategies used to fight it. The use of new technologies and intelligence-sharing networks will be essential to adapt to the decentralized nature of drug trafficking. While traditional methods of policing and investigation remain important, Lecornu stressed the need for constant adaptation to meet the ever-changing nature of the drug trade. The Prime Minister further reiterated that the challenge posed by drug trafficking is not just a matter of policing, but also one of societal resilience. This fight is not just about law enforcement, it is about building national unity and resilience against the forces that seek to undermine our society, Lecornu remarked. He emphasised that the French people must stand together in confronting this rising threat and that national unity will be critical in overcoming the challenges posed by these criminal organisations. In his address, Lecornu also pointed out the importance of public awareness and education in addressing the root causes of drug trafficking and violence. He called for more efforts to raise awareness about the dangers posed by the drug trade and to provide communities with the resources and support they need to resist these criminal influences. He highlighted that the government's efforts would be supported by a broader public campaign to engage local communities in this battle, ensuring that everyone is part of the solution. Looking ahead, Lecornu made it clear that the fight against drug trafficking would not be a quick or easy one. While the French government is committed to making significant strides in reducing the influence of these criminal networks, Lecornu emphasised that the road ahead will require persistence and a sustained national effort. This is a fight that will take time, but we are committed to securing a safer future for our children and for all of France, he concluded. The government's response to drug trafficking is expected to continue evolving over the coming months, with additional measures likely to be introduced as part of a long-term strategy. The success of this approach will depend not only on the legal and law enforcement measures in place, but also on the willingness of all sectors of society to contribute to the effort. As Lecornu stated, the fight is just beginning, and France's ability to adapt and respond will determine the success of its efforts in tackling the growing threat of drug trafficking. This situation is still developing, and more updates are expected in the coming weeks as France's response to this issue intensifies.